For centuries, historians and textbooks have repeated a specific story about the year 1517. It is the moment the supreme spiritual leadership of the Islamic world supposedly changed hands, with the last Abbasid caliph surrendering his title to the conquering Ottoman Sultan, Yavuz Selim, on a silver platter. The handover is said to have included the physical keys to the Kaaba in Mecca and the sacred relics of the Prophet Muhammad, marking a formal, legal abdication. This ceremony solved a problem of lineage. Traditional law required the caliph to descend from the Prophet's own Quraysh bloodline. The Ottoman dynasty, being Turkic, had no ancestral connection to this Arab lineage. To rule as spiritual leaders, the Ottomans required a legal bridge. A formal transfer from the Abbasid heir provided the necessary legitimacy to claim the title for themselves. This narrative takes a chaotic military conquest and reimagines it as a tidy legal transaction. It was a story so convenient that it remained unchallenged for over 200 years. But the 16th century records tell a different story. In the diaries, letters, and eyewitness accounts written during the conquest of Egypt, this ceremony is nowhere to be found. The myth of the silver platter first appeared in a 1788 publication by a Swedish diplomat named Dawson. He was writing hundreds of years after the Ottoman victory, essentially inventing a ritual that never took place. Modern historical consensus rejects Dawson's account. There was no abdication and no keys were handed over by the last Abbasid. If the Ottomans did not inherit the title through this legal ritual, we have to look elsewhere to see how they became the leaders of the Islamic world. The true rise of the Ottoman Caliphate was not built on polite diplomacy, but on a total redefinition of what it meant to hold absolute power. This is Cairo, the seat of the Abbasid Caliphate in the early 1500s. At the time, the city was the capital of the Mamluk Empire, and the caliphs were little more than residents of the Sultan's court. These Abbasid heirs were powerless figureheads. They were effectively political hostages, living under Mamluk control with no actual say in the governance of the Islamic world. The Mamluks used the caliphs for public ceremonies to give their own rule a religious veneer, while the caliphs themselves held no military or political weight. That dynamic ended when Yavuz Sultan Selim launched his campaign south. The Ottoman war machine dismantled the Mamluk defense at Mergdabik and Radania. With the Mamluk military broken, Selim entered Cairo and took the last Abbasid caliph, Al-Mutawakkil III, into his own custody. Selim now physically possessed the person of the caliph, yet he made no effort to secure a ceremonial blessing from his prisoner. Selim chose to bypass the Abbasid institution entirely, ignoring the centuries-old requirement for a formal transfer of authority. His strategy is revealed in a letter sent from Damascus to Tuman Bey, the last holdout of the Mamluk leadership. In the letter, Selim dismisses the Mamluk reliance on the caliph's presence. He argues that his ownership of the land and his right to lead were won through the right of the sword. For Selim, military supremacy was the only mandate that mattered. If he held the territory by force, the religious authority was already his. By refusing to play the proxy games of his predecessors, Selim demolished the medieval framework of spiritual leadership and replaced it with imperial reality. The Ottomans began to rewrite the laws of the Caliphate, stripping away the requirement that a leader must be born into the Quraysh bloodline. Selim justified this shift by pointing to the Quran, arguing that God directly appoints his representatives on earth based on their ability to lead, not their ancestry. Under this new Ottoman definition, caliphal authority was tied to military capability. To be the caliph, one had to possess the actual strength to defend the Islamic world. This led to the adoption of a new title, Servant of the Two Holy Sanctuaries. It was a claim of authority based on the physical protection of Mecca and Medina. The Caliphate was no longer a passive, symbolic office. It had become an active, militarized position held by the most powerful ruler in the region. In a single generation, the Caliphate was transformed. It moved from being a ceremonial hostage in Cairo to the administrative center of an empire. This new model allowed the Ottomans to unify diverse populations across Egypt, the Levant, and the Hejaz under a single militarized command. This imperial version of the Caliphate remained the undisputed reality of the Middle East for the next 400 years. The Ottomans changed the course of history through conquest and decree, without a single silver platter ever changing hands. Authority is rarely granted through polite ceremonies. In the real world, it is forged, redefined, and enforced by those who hold the sword.